So if this is working good for you guys, then I guess I'll just keep on talking about the news that came out that on January 12th of next year, we're going to be finally getting the big event to unveil the Nintendo Switch. And it's happening in Japan. It's going to be at likely the biggest theater that they could possibly rent out in Japan. So it's going to be a major event, maybe similar to the Space World shows that they used to have back in the 90s, back when, stuff was cool. um, Back before gamers actually got jaded about everything. But but yeah, like I'm really looking forward to this event. I'm glad it's going to be more of a bigger event and a live stream. I feel bad for maybe some of the people that work in the media that have to go all the way to Japan to try it out for the first time. But I would hope that Nintendo would have some smaller events um, shortly thereafter in the United States where people could try the system. So in any event, I think it's nice to finally have a date. I mean, I was getting pretty frustrated. I think all of us probably were with this lack of communication on when exactly we were going to find out about this system. It went on like basically, I'm not sure exactly when we found out that basically, I guess it was last year, in the middle of last year or so, we were told that next year they would have more to share. And then they told us early in the year that it might not be too late in the year. And then before E3, we found out that it wasn't going to be at E3, but it was still going to be, uh, you know, uh, something that would share information about this year. And it somehow managed to take all the way into November. And during this whole period of time, we had very little information. Just this year, good luck. So, that it's really nice that they actually gave us a date, a firm date of when the full reveal event will be held in Japan. So, um, what big? Okay, got some questions here. Ink Viper says, "What big reveal would you like to see?" Well, personally, it's kind of hard to say, because we are getting a game that I'm very much looking forward to. My default answer is almost always Zelda, but we already have a lot of information on Breath of the Wild, and that game is coming to the Switch. But the biggest reveal I would like to see would be probably either like a Metroid game from the Nintendo side of things, or a major announcement of third-party support coming from, one of the big third parties that I really respect, Rockstar, um, Bethesda, BioWare, that kind of thing. And I even though EA gets a lot of flack, and for good reason, I do want to see the Switch get a lot of the EA sports games, especially for me personally, Madden football and NHL would be the best. So, yeah. Let's see if we got any other questions here. So we got a little bit of bad news today. I don't know if you guys have been following the Twitter at all, but Emily Rogers, who has ended up being quite right about what this system is, at least what the Switch was going to be all about, basically said that she doesn't expect the Switch to get current third-party AAA games. It's going to be mostly Nintendo first party. It's going to be Japanese games, which are great. It's going to be indie games, and it's going to be like maybe some enhanced version of last gen games, like we're seeing with Elder Scrolls Skyrim. So that's kind of disappointing in a way, but at the same time, it just makes me believe even more that this is by far not the this is by far not the only hardware that Nintendo is coming out with. I think that they said when they first announced the NX that they were going to be more vigorous than ever before, more ambitious than ever before when it comes to hardware. And as much as I like the Switch and I'm going to be buying one on day one, to me, this isn't Nintendo being more aggressive than ever before, especially since this system has already been confirmed by Nintendo not to be a replacement for the 3DS. So it's not even doing the whole, basically being a hybrid where it's going to be Nintendo's console and it's going to be Nintendo's handheld. While it is a hybrid in that it is a hybrid in a general sense, it's not a hybrid for Nintendo because they're still going to be running a handheld system, one that you can fit in your pocket alongside the Switch. So I'm expecting more announcements to come in the future, and I just would like to see Nintendo, before the Switch comes out, make it clear at least what their plans are in terms of other pieces of hardware, because I think it's a little bit unfair to gamers. If gamers believe this is the one and only system that's coming out, then they're gonna have feel like, well, I'm forced to buy it, even if I would prefer a more traditional console or I would prefer a pocketable handheld, thinking that this is the only option to play Nintendo games. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a couple of other news stories today that were interesting that might be related to the SoC or the no, not I think you meant to say SCD, but the supplemental computing device patents potentially, because Kimoshima confirmed that we have not seen everything. He said that the Switch is part of basically an ecosystem, a larger ecosystem, and he also said that there will be additional hardware, and there will be a wide array of accessories, and he also referred to it as add-on hardware. He wasn't quite sure whether it would be more appropriate to call it add-on hardware or accessories. But with Nintendo, they're always kind of very picky about how they say things. I don't know what the difference is between an add-on hardware and an accessory, but I think it's kind of interesting. We found out some sort of bad news. You're not going to be able to plug an external hard drive into the base station for the Switch, because Nintendo wanted it to be very simple, where basically all the games that you had downloaded would be stored in the system, so that you wouldn't have to mess with basically switching games, like telling certain games to be on your local dock and certain games to be on the device. So, but what's interesting about that is, why would Nintendo put two USB ports on there? Particularly, why would Nintendo put a USB 2.0 and a USB 3.0? I could see how Nintendo might have just had 2.0s, or just gone all out with, and just gone with modern tech and just being like, okay, we're just going to put 3.0s into there. But the fact that they have one 2.0 and one 3.0 is interesting. The 3.0 is much faster in terms of transfer. So the only two things that I can think of at the top of my head as a reason why they felt they really needed to include that 3.0 would be for something like a supplemental computing device that could potentially increase the power of the console. And secondly, it could be for some sort of VR headset, because 2.0 is not going to cut it for either of those. It's really hard to know exactly where Nintendo is going with some of this stuff, because even I would say an SCD doesn't make complete sense to me for the Switch. That is a supplemental computing device, unless you can somehow use it to add power to the system on the go. the biggest reason why it's going to struggle to get current AAA ports is not is not about how powerful the system is when it's plugged into your TV. I think they could make that work. The problem is with the performance of games on the go, because I think it's going to have a much lower, a much lower profile when it's on the go to save battery life. So having a supplemental commuting device might really increase the look of your games at home, but it's not really going to get rid of that barrier they have with the performance on the go. Okay, let's see. We got some more questions here. So, third-party software developers, if games support multiple graphic modes, profiles, they would know. Get one of them to confirm it before we believe add-on could add graphics. Well, sure. I've talked to some software developers privately, and I think everybody's kind of concerned right now about the performance of the system on the go. So that's one big question that is out there. Okay. You guys have any more questions? If not, I'm just going to go back to my Twitter here quickly and try and see what else I wanted to talk about today. No, I mean, I think that we've kind of moved past the event, and we can talk about whatever you want. What do you want to talk about Kimishima, John Steele? Yeah, I think it's getting to the point. Okay, I guess your question is, should we believe Kimishima when he says something he's lied already several times? Well, I don't know that he's lied about anything, but I think that at times there's things that are lost in translation. I'm not sure if you can give me an example of something specifically, but at the time being, we don't know that the Switch is all he was referring to when he said NX. I still believe fully that the NX ends up being basically a platform or an ecosystem, and there ends up being several pieces of hardware. So I don't know exactly what you're referring to. Is it true that they say that the dock is not going to add extra power? To my knowledge, 100%, the dock doesn't add extra power. At least that's my belief. But that's a little bit misleading because it does add extra power in a way, in terms of the way I understand it. Because when it's plugged into a power source, I think that at that point it'll be like plugging in a laptop, and it'll be in the highest performance mode possible, and it might even make a little bit of noise, and there will be some active cooling that I think gets activated at that time. And then when you have it on the go, it'll be like when you unplug your laptop and it goes into a power savings mode. So I think you will get better graphics when it's plugged into your TV, but there won't technically be extra power or supplemental computing built into the dock, at least the way I understand it. Okay, so you're quoting Player Essence Kimishima said something about it not being another Wii. He also said he would play the NX. Well, I don't know why you would think that this is another Wii, because the Wii was designed to have a gimmick or a different way to play video games in general. It was about fitness and exercise and standing up in your living room and using a motion controller. And they were moving away from traditional games into experiences that weren't necessarily traditional video games. Whereas with the Switch, the focus is seemingly 100% on traditional gaming. It's a whichever way you look at it, you've got analog sticks and buttons, and that's the focus. There was no mention of motion controls in the trailer. It's been all but confirmed that there will be a touchscreen on the handheld unit for when you're on the go, but that was certainly not a focus of what they have revealed. Yeah, so but the other thing is that he said that the NX would basically replace both the Wii U and the 3DS. And now that the Switch is coming out, they're saying that, hold on a minute, we're still going to be fully supporting the 3DS until I think 2017 or no 2018, which you can read that in that he lied, or you can read that there's more to the story that's yet to be told on what exactly the NX is. And my opinion is more to the latter. And since Kimishima did confirm today that the Switch is going to be part of a larger ecosystem, what's the point of having it be a part of an ecosystem if that ecosystem doesn't involve, brothers and sisters? Do you think the quality of life heart monitor will make a return, or do you think they'll scrap it altogether? I think that they're going to scrap it altogether. Honestly, I think that that was a way for them to broaden out, and it was one of Iwata's ideas to broaden their appeal and create some, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, just create some backup plans or different ways of making money so that are diversifying the company. And then at some point, I think they very quickly made a switch in their mentality where we're going to start making games for mobile phones. We're going to start making movies. And they just decided to broaden the reach of their IPs, their games outside of their own hardware. Instead, and I just don't think there's any need at the company right now to focus on those kind of products. They're going to have their hands full with all the expansions that they're doing to their IP. Okay, the Unmarked Crow says, predicting the launch lineup is near impossible, but what would your dream launch lineup be? Well, I would say that there's some givens. I mean, I would love to have that new Mario game that looks fantastic available at launch. I would love to have Zelda available at launch. And I think that you want to have, I'm a sports guy. So I would love to see some EA Sports titles and the NBA 2K that was shown off in the trailer available at launch. And, I mean, I think that you want to have another, some other AAA games, maybe some games that coming out this Christmas ported over to the system, but it doesn't sound like that's in the cards. It's going to be more older games getting enhanced versions. So, yeah. Other than that, I would like to see Beyond Good and Evil 2, which has been rumored to be coming to the NX or potentially as an exclusive. So if that's happening, that'd be great too. I think you don't want to have too many games coming out of the launch. It's better to have enough games to ensure a good launch and give people promise for the future, but then also have games to look forward to right aways that are coming out in the future. Do you think Virtual Console will reboot all over again? Um, by reboot, are you meaning that they will force you to repay for the same games? I'm going to assume that Virtual Console is still going to be a big thing going forward. Maybe you can elaborate on your question. Oh, start with only two available. Um, I would, with Nintendo, you never know with stuff like this. They could launch a system with Virtual Console plan to come in the future, and they will share more details later. But I would hope that they would have at least 10 or 15 of the classic games available, and with maybe a very small fee again to rebuy those ones if you've purchased them in the past. And I hope that they extend some sort of program as well to owners of Wii U games that are being ported for the launch of the Switch, that if you at least own those games digitally, you don't have to pay full price. Like, you shouldn't have to pay. Like, I know they're doing some work and adding some features, but they're probably doing about $20 worth, in my opinion. So yeah. Um, Harvey Williams, do you think they will add a piece of hardware that will give it closer to PS4 Pro or Scorpio, basically make it more of a home console? I don't think so for this device. And I think that the reason I'm saying that is because I think it's the biggest problem on the system is the performance on the go. Um, so just to increase the performance at home, again, isn't going to really make it easier to bring games to the system. And that, I think, is going to be a big issue for the system. The more I'm hearing and learning about it, my bigger hope is that Nintendo is going to come out with a traditional console as well, and in the not too distant future. Do you have a third party game that you want to port over to the Switch? For me, it's Overwatch. I haven't got to play Overwatch yet. I'm not too big into multiplayer shooters, but I have been a big fan of Blizzard in the past, so I can definitely see how that game is probably appealing. Um, but I would say that Bethesda is probably my favorite third-party studio that exists right now. So if we can start seeing a lot of Bethesda games coming over to the Switch, I think that would be awesome. Elder Scrolls looks like it's coming. I would love to see them bring over Fallout as well. And whatever, they're working on a new RPG that they haven't announced, so I'd love to see that as well. And Red Dead Redemption would be pretty cool too. So if there was one Japanese game series exclusive to PlayStation that you would like to see poached by Nintendo, much like Monster Hunter, which would you like it to be? Um, that is a good question. I, I got to think of which Japanese game series right now are big exclusives for Sony, because they don't have nearly as many of those as they used to. It seems like anything bigger budget is going multi-platform. Um, well, I guess if you call this a series, I would say the Final Fantasy VII Remake series. That would be pretty cool, but that ain't going to happen. That's a good point. From Regener, whatever your name that starts with an R and ends with an 8 Productions. Um, he says, I'm doubtful that Nintendo will create a new / separate console from the Switch since they merged their handheld and console departments a few years ago. Wouldn't that suggest that the goal of moving forward is unity on the development front? Regenerate, sorry about that. Um, well, I think that there is unity, but there's still going to be unity with their different systems that they come out with, but they're not all of them will be like the Switch. The way I view it, the Switch is basically a a go-between system, like for maybe a family unit that wants to have a console that, I think the one big hit about the Wii, the one good thing about the Wii U was that families had a console that they could play together as a family. But when, one member of the family wanted to use the TV for something else, or the entire family wanted to use the TV for something else except for one person, that they could still play their console off of the controller. So I see the Switch as being that in-between system, that if you're looking for something more than just a pocketable handheld, um, or a cell phone game, it's a good system for you. And also if you feel like a full-on hardcore high-end console is just a little bit more than what you need, or doesn't have the versatility you need, that's what that's going to be there for. But I think there will probably also be at some point in the future a more traditional console, and I think they've pretty much confirmed that they are going to be continuing with a separate pocketable handheld. The Switch is not a system to really take on the go with you, the way that a 3DS is. It's not something that's going to fit into your pocket, and it doesn't have tremendously long battery life. I see it as more something that you're going to take with you on a road trip, on an airplane, where you can maybe plug it in your car, and use it on a road trip. But I don't see it as an everyday, you're not going to, like in the video, they had somebody walking their dog and playing their Switch. That's not going to happen. So I believe there was a report also out of Japan that seemed to suggest that Nintendo had said that they're going to be coming out with a new handheld system in the future. So right now, it definitely seems like they're coming out with a new handheld. So right there, they're not merging their software development into one system. And at the end of the day, I think many games on, like, the higher end games on the Switch will probably be on the console, and there will be a lot of different sharing, and they'll all have the same operating system, and it'll be easy to port between them. But I don't see this being the one and only system. I ordered 3 soft tacos, but I really should have gotten 6. Yeah, that sucks. I got some Taco Bell yesterday, and I got 4 tacos and 1 spicy chicken sandwich because it was a Taco Bell KFC. But I definitely feel the pain of only 3 tacos. So do you think that Nintendo is moving back to the 3 pillars approach instead of having all their eggs in one basket? Yeah, well, it's really, yeah, they're definitely going for more pillars. That's for sure. They're going to be doing, movies and animes and, theme park, you name it. And like, I think mobile, in terms of like iPhone and Android, is going to become a huge new pillar for Nintendo. Like, within a few years, they're going to be making multiple billions of dollars a year just on that new pillar. And then I think Nintendo's getting aggressive. Like, I just don't see, with this new aggressive Nintendo and them saying that they're going to be more aggressive than ever on their own hardware, I just don't see the Switch being the only system that they're going to be coming out with. because it serves a certain purpose and it'll find its niche out there. I just don't see it getting them to 150 to 200 million pieces of hardware out there, which is what Nintendo wants to do. They don't want to just sell 40, 50 million uh, pieces of hardware over a 5-year span. They want to dominate again. The Game Informer, it would seem weird for them to have a hybrid and a handheld system at the same time. Yeah, but you got to understand, like things like Pokemon uh, is huge in all over the world, and there's not just Pokemon, but a bunch of other like Yokai Watch and Monster Hunter, and tons of experiences in Japan, and a big portion of that is kids that are, adults play those games too. Don't get me wrong, but a big portion of that is putting a device in your pocket and bringing them to school, and getting together and playing games together for during your lunch break and on the train and all this kind of stuff. And I just don't think that people are going to lug the Switch with them. They're going to want to have um, a traditional handheld, and the fact that they're continuing to support the 3DS and have promised all this support for it after having said that the NX would replace the Wii U and the 3DS really leads me to wonder what's going on. I would like a 3DS home console that works with the Wii U gamepad, like a Vita TV. Yeah, I mean that would be kind of a cool product, but I think Nintendo has made some comments, uh, especially when it comes to Breath of the Wild, where they just don't believe anymore that having a screen interact with the TV, where you have to switch your head back and forth. They said that they believe gamers find that experience to be a little bit confusing, and I just think they're moving away from that. Um, do you think that the Switch could be also running Android apps? I don't. I don't think like I think it'll run apps that are similar to Android, and um, they probably will get some more apps than they got on the Wii U or the 3DS. I would sure hope that it would have all of the apps that you would expect, at least for entertainment. But I don't think that it will get very many like productivity apps. Like I don't know that you're going to be checking your email on there or downloading Excel or Word and that kind of thing. But I think it's got to have like MLB TV. It's got to have obviously like YouTube, Netflix, and all the different streaming services out there, Crunchy Roll. But I think the big one is to get onto the sports, because they didn't get all of those, and all the other systems got them. Like I think you need to have NHL Game Center as well, MLB TV, like I mentioned, and I think there's an NFL one. So I do think that they probably will get better support, but I don't think it'll be natively running Android apps. Okay. This deviates from the multi-pillar approach, but if they were to stick with one unit, the Switch, I wonder what that would look like moving forward. AMD in PS4 is doing something akin to Crossfire. Well, if they were to stick with one device, I think they definitely would do something like they probably would be coming out with new devices fairly regularly, almost like a cell phone, where they would come out with a more powerful Switch handheld um, every other year or so, and they would likely be able to, double the power each time, which would be pretty significant. It's rumored that the Switch is going to be about 700 gigaflops um, when it's plugged into the TV. And within a couple years, maybe they could have something more powerful than the Xbox One and in the range of the PS4. So we'll have to wait and see. I wanted to play all the RPGs that are on the DS/3DS on the TV. The NX gives me that as long as 3DS games come to the NS. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, right? Like, we don't know. I don't. So far, they didn't really want to signal to people that it was going to be getting 3DS games because they didn't show any 3DS games in the reveal trailer. But we'll find out more on January 12th, I guess. Definitely would be cool to get Pokemon on a home console for once. I agree with you. Uh, the size, the system is too big to fit in your pocket. Will there be a pocket-sized version if successful? Well, yeah, I mean, that's, to me, that's the most logical thing, would be that maybe Nintendo would wait until 2018, um, and then they could shrink down the system at that time. Excuse me. They could shrink down the system at that time into a pocketable version, and it would basically be the same innards that are in the larger Switch tablet right now, and then it could run the exact same games library, hopefully. And perhaps at that time, they could also come out with a new premium Switch tablet that was quite a bit more powerful than the current one. Um, in the Neo, I wonder if Nintendo would be doing something similar with the Switch. SLI Tegra chip between the tablet console and the dock. That would certainly be the best of both worlds uh, for the handheld home console power. Yeah, like I said, like that kind of thing is possible, but it doesn't get them out of the situation they're in, where they're not going to be getting very many current AAA ports because of the on-the-go performance. And I think Nintendo is going to have a requirement that every game has to at least play decently on the go. So simply increasing the power of the television experience is going to be nice for some games, but it's not going to really increase the library of the system, and that's, I think, what it's really all about. Yeah, like, I don't think it would be technically impossible. Just give me a second, guys. Um, Nintendo OS predictions, they usually suck. Yeah, Nintendo operating systems haven't been the best. They've been easy to use at times, which has been good, but they have been pretty slow. I think that I think that the operating system will be simple and easy to use, like they always have been. And then, like, I would imagine that they put in a lot of time to make it run a lot more slick than their previous operating systems. And I'm hoping that they have got some outside help, maybe from the company DNA that they partnered with. And if they partnered with, they also do have some connections with Google, but I don't think that they're going to be running Android in the background or anything like that. Yeah, another one, though the Switch is still a little large for a handheld. I think like the big thing is, well, the battery life is gonna, not be great. It's not going to be what people are used to for a handheld. If anything, they need to come up with a handheld with better battery life than the 3DS. Um, and the Yeah, and it's not just the size; it's also the fact that it has full on like analog sticks that you would actually want to use. Okay, it's not like the Vita that has these really little tiny analog sticks that kind of suck, that are designed to be able to slide into your pocket. So yeah, like I just don't see it for replacing the vast majority of their handheld sales. And I don't think it really converts those users. Like a big thing for the handhelds too is that they're a little bit less expensive, and you end up having a family that has like four kids, and they'll have like four 3DSs or five or six, even if mom and dad want to get one too. Um, so I don't think Nintendo is going to be wanting to remove that aspect. There's people like me who basically bought the 3DS for the exclusive games that I couldn't get on my Nintendo home console, and I also like to, um, take one on a trip with me, and sometimes I just like to relax on the couch and play a handheld. I find it very relaxing. I think the Switch totally replaces everything that I would need out of a handheld, pending how many 3DS games actually end up getting ported to the Switch. What do you think of Nintendo's limited low cost marketing for the NS? Is it because of limited units the first year, or because they know social media will market it for them? Well, I don't know that we really know what their marketing costs are going to be, but Nintendo has always been uh, the type of company that likes to let their product speak for itself and get the free media that comes with that, and also the word of mouth that comes with that. They typically, don't spend a lot of money uh, marketing some of their games compared to other companies who will, uh, you know, will base a large portion of their success on advertising campaigns. Nintendo knows that if you make a great game, people will find the game. Okay. Do you think Resident Evil 2 will be on Switch? What about Final Fantasy VII Remake? Well, I don't think that Final Fantasy VII Remake will be there, at least not at the moment that it comes out, because Sony has a at least a timed exclusivity deal on that title. Final Fantasy VII Remake would make some sense because the system already supports the engine that that game is being made on, and I think the Switch will be a big success in Japan and worldwide. So I think that could happen in the future, but not day and date. Resident Evil 2, I guess you're talking about like a remake of Resident Evil 2 on the Switch. Yeah, that's altogether possible. That's the kind of thing that really makes sense to me. I think it's going to be a system that gets a lot of classic remakes. Um, hey, thanks for the nice comments there, MCLOS. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I guess Edwin is suggesting that they could possibly be Joy-Cons with sliders, maybe. Potentially, they could do something like that. They did talk today, or Kimishima did, about lots. There's going to be lots of accessories and hardware add-ons and whatnot that they're going to announce early next year. I do like the idea of having different types of Joy-Cons. I think I would like them to even bundle in a Joy-Con that has a D-pad on it. I mean, personally, I'm going to probably buy, well, 100% sure I'm going to buy a Pro controller, and I think I'll probably end up doing all of my console gaming on the Pro controller. No, I didn't see the Monster Hunter Direct. I didn't even hear about that one. How recently did that happen? I don't really think that them having a Monster Hunter Direct implies that there won't be a Monster Hunter on the Switch, but you never know. We'll have to wait and see on that one. I think a Monster Hunter would make a lot of sense because I really see this system. I really see this system as well. Just it's going to destroy the Vita in Japan, and I think that any kind of title that is a Japanese focused title that has been like a cross buy and cross play, like with cloud saves between the PS4 and Vita. Those are the types of titles that I think will make the most sense to be on the system. Of course, Monster Hunter has been exclusive to Nintendo for a while, and I would expect that to continue. But I think that you'll see it's a product. It's a hybrid, right? It's a system that's targeting people that like a little bit of console and a little bit of handheld. Thoughts on Nintendo having an open to the public event for the Switch? Do you think it will be like Space World? Yeah, I think it's going to be a big event. I talked about this a bit in the beginning, but I can talk about it again. Um, it's going to be, I think, a massive, massive event, kind of like their own little mini E3. They have booked the largest theater in Japan to hold the event, and I'm excited about it. I don't know, based on it's a kind of a weird system in a way because it's not something that you need to get your hands on like some of the previous product that Nintendo has come out with. It's we I think unless there's some big surprises that we don't know about, I think we can fully understand what the experience will be like. You can play it as a console, and you can play it as a handheld. But it is good that they're letting people go hands on with it. But I think you'll get pretty much everything you need to know out of the press conference. Do you see the possibility of them releasing Joy-Con variants based on previous Nintendo systems, like a GameCube one, similar? Oh, that's a cool idea. I never thought about that, but yeah, I would love to see that. I would love to see one that is like one of my biggest complaints for since they've come out with the Virtual Console is I want to be able to play those games on the original controller that they were intended to be played on. And, I have to think about it a little bit more, but it really seems like, for the controller that comes with the system that you snap the Joy-Cons onto, if you had one that was just a D-pad and two buttons, you could have a Super Nintendo themed one, GameCube, and then that could be used as well for Smash Brothers. That would be really cool. I want that. I haven't played the Golden Sun games, unfortunately. I would have probably got into Golden Sun on the DS, but it came out kind of really late on the DS, and I think at that point in time I had moved on to other things that I was focusing on in my gaming life, so I didn't get a chance to play it. But I would love to see them make another Golden Sun. I love Japanese RPGs, and I would like to check out that franchise a little bit more. There were rumors about a sequel to Diddy Kong Racing in the works for the NX Switch by Monster Games. What do you think about the possibility of that happening? Um, yeah, that totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. I don't think that it would happen um, for like a year or so after launch, because with a remake of or a port of Mario Kart 8 at launch, um, you're probably like you're not gonna want to oversaturate that style of game at launch, because nobody's gonna end up buying Diddy Kong Racing if it has to compete against the Mario Kart title. But it might come out like, maybe if it does come out, it'd be great, and it'd come out probably a year after the system, and probably the next full-on Mario Kart game maybe comes out a year or so after that. But yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, Ink Viper, I really miss those times as well. I think my favorite Space World show was the one where the N64 was unveiled. Um, that was before the time where you could actually watch like live streams of things. But I got a magazine right after that came out that had a full unveil. It was probably a Game Spot or what was that one? Game Pro. It was probably a Game Pro magazine. And I remember they had all these pictures of these different N64 games, and I couldn't believe that 3D graphics could exist. And everything looked awesome. There was a full blowout of Mario. You had Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey, but the picture that really stood out was that one picture of Link from a Zelda game. Oh man, those were the days. Hey Nathan Young, thanks for the comments about the channel. I appreciate that. Hopefully you get home soon. I've already been going for an hour, and I'm gonna probably start wasting away pretty soon if I don't eat anything. Um, yeah, I could see an F-Zero game going toe to toe with Mario Kart 8, because it provides a different experience completely. But I really think that when it comes to Diddy Kong, it's virtually the same type of game. Even underneath the umbrella of racing games, it's the same kind of game as a Mario Kart. And F-Zero is more. It's still a arcade racer, but it's got the whole sci-fi, and it's a little bit more for experienced gamers than Mario Kart. Although, don't get me wrong, I'm an experienced gamer and I still love Mario Kart, but I think Mario Kart definitely has a broader appeal. Like, it can be more of a party game where people that haven't played games yet can play Mario Kart. Um, yeah, Kid Icarus Uprising 2 on Switch would be awesome. Um, I loved Kid Icarus Uprising on 3DS, but my hands didn't. I found it that it was. I think that game was honestly supposed to be a Wii game, and the controls for me personally would have worked really, really good on the Wii, moving around with your left hand and pointing with your right hand. But my hand always gets cramped because I got these big hands when I'm playing on 3DS. So when I have to press down on one side of the system with the stylus and try and move around, it just doesn't work that well for me. So I would love to see them take another go at that franchise on a different system. Yeah, Mario Maker on Switch is kind of interesting with what we now know about the Switch. Uh, well, basically, it's required that you have to have the console in the dock when you're playing it as a console, or you have to have the handheld in the dock when you're playing it as a console. So you don't really have the opportunity to use a touchscreen. But they could probably heavily redesign the creation tools around a dual analog controller and still make it work. And then alternatively, you could use a touch screen when you didn't have a dock to the TV. Anyways, guys, I think I got to get going. It's been about an hour, and I've had a really good time here. So if you haven't watched the whole video, I will post the whole video on my channel as soon as I can, maybe within the next hour or so. And I will do this again. Give me comments below the video later on and let me know if you guys enjoyed this, and we can keep doing it. All right, take care now.